Hi, everybody. This is Holly from Homewood Science Center. We are here today for our virtual brain break with our friends from the Cancer Support Center. We are joined by Amethyst, who is a art therapy intern at the Cancer Support Center, for a virtual brain break. These are art exploration and appreciation activities for kids grades kindergarten through fifth, using materials that you can find at your own home. Before we get started, I want to invite everybody to join us for family yoga on our Facebook Live on Saturdays at 1 p.m. These family yoga classes are led by Liz from Serendipity Yoga, and they are a wonderful way to connect and breathe and move and explore fun themes with your family. And I also want to encourage all of you to go Silly for Census. We've got a Silly for Census Facebook photo contest. We thought it would be fun for you to share with your friends and family that you completed the census with a silly photo. So find out how you can win $100 by going on our website to get all of the official details, homewoodsciencecenter.org/census. So let's get on to the fun. I am going to turn our presentation over to Miss Amethyst so we can get on with our brain break. And I hear we've got a really fun topic today. So Amethyst, if you want to pull up your presentation there and tell us a little bit about today's topic.
Let me pull it up and get over there. All right, so can you see my screen? Can you see my slide?
That looks good to me.
Perfect. Okay, great. So today, for our brain break, our theme is origami. I thought this would be something that would be super fun and easy to do at home. If you got any sort of paper lying around, it can just be regular printer paper or junk mail or notebook paper. Like you can do all sorts of stuff with just some paper in your hands. So I'm gonna go a little bit into what origami is, and I looked up a little bit of the history of origami as well. So origami is the art of folding paper into different shapes and forms. And so paper was invented in China a long, long time ago, and China traded a lot with their resources and their culture with Japan. And so while China invented paper, it's pretty much believed that origami was more so invented in Japan. And before the paper, there were also traditions of folding other things, like fabric, but nothing folds quite as good as paper. The words from origami comes from two smaller Japanese words. Ori is to fold, and then kami is to paper. Kami and gami, I'm sure like the K and the G might just be from different pronunciations. But that kind of shows how words can change over time, but they come from certain roots. And when it first started out, a lot of it was being used for very special occasions and religious ceremonies, because paper was really expensive because they didn't have machines, and so all of it had to be made from hand. I also found an excerpt from the first known book published on origami, and I don't speak Japanese, so I might say this a bit wrong, but it's the Hiden Senbazuru Orikata, and it was published in 1797. So this has been going on for hundreds of years. And so when you want to do origami, you can find all sorts of instructions like online or in books. Usually you want your paper that you start out with to be square. Now I know lots of paper that you get usually comes in rectangles, but a little bit later I'm going to show some videos that shows a really easy way to make your rectangle paper into a square. And a lot of instructions and charts will have different symbols for different ways to fold things. So you might have to fold it and then unfold it and have a crease. You might have to flip the paper over. And this is just an example of some symbols that might be used in some of those instructions. But if you're having a hard time, you can always look for a video. That's what I've included today for our presentation. And so the first thing I'm going to show everybody how to make is an origami fortune teller. Pardon me. Those have a lot of different names that people have used. You might have made these in school. I know I certainly did. And so I've got some written out instructions for you to look at while I also am doing it with my hands. And so for my rectangle piece of paper, all you got to do is fold a triangle to line up the corner to the side of the other side of the paper. And it makes a nice little triangle, and then you can cut the extra strip of paper off, and you can even save that to maybe make some other crafts with later. And then once you cut that up, you've got just a nice square piece of paper. And it's not always, I know I don't always cut in the most perfect straight lines, but for this one, I feel like I did a pretty good job. I was able to actually make my thing. And so for this, I am folding diagonally across the paper, both sides, and then also lengthways, like to make them into rectangles. And right now I am just folding and creasing really good and then unfolding it so that even when the paper lies flat, you can still see that crease. And that those creases are going to act like blueprints a little bit later on to kind of follow along where we need to fold. And so then you take your corners and you fold them into that center point, which you can see right from all of those creases that you just did. So that's why you want your creases to be nice and dark and really strong so you can see exactly where those corners need to meet. And so once you get all 4 of your corners in, you want to flip the paper over and just do that again. And you want to, you've still got that center point to go off of, and you want to fold all of those corners into the center. See how I'm creasing really good because I don't want any of these folds to come undone. If it gets a little unraveled or undone, then I have to start all over again. And if you crease it really good, that won't happen. And then one more final time, you flip it over and fold those corners in once again. And then once you get all of those corners in, you're going to see me. I like to pick it up and fold it in the rectangles again with these new flaps that I just made in the middle. So kind of fold it that way, and you can sort of see those little pockets on the outside. And so once you do that, you want to stick your fingers into those pockets, and you might have to do a little bit of like wiggling and maneuvering. You'll see in a second, one of my fingers, the pocket doesn't pop out all the way and I have to adjust it. But yeah, you can get your little fingers in there, your thumb and your forefinger, and you pinch it in different ways to make it open up, and you can put all sorts of things in there. So what do you want to write in your fortune teller? Usually there's colors on the outside and you put numbers on the inside and you spell out the color and then you pick a number and you do that many and then you pick another number and there's a message inside. But it doesn't have to be like that. You can do animals, you can do shapes, you can put whatever you want. So this one I did red, R-E-D, and then the number 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I picked the number 3 and you open it up and you see the flap. And I just drew a happy face, but you can put in positive messages, jokes, fortunes, anything you want.
I like
What do you
this.
think you could put in yours, Holly?
Well, I was thinking I could use this with my daughter and put some chores. Do you think she'd like that?
I think it might be fun to kind of pick your fortune to see what chores. I kind of thought I might make one. I'm always having a hard time deciding what I want to eat for dinner or what I want to make for my snacks. So if I just put a bunch of different little foods in there, I can count it out or call a friend and say like, hey, pick a color really quick. Hey, pick a number really quick. And then, make them choose for me so I don't have to remember. But there's all sorts of fun ways that you can use these and you can play with your friends and family.
Yeah, I like the thought of
And
putting
so the next thing
I like the thought of putting the positive messages in there because it's a way of spreading kindness to
Mhm.
people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's, no limit. You can put little drawings in there if you're maybe not wanting to write anything, you don't have any words. You can just put like I put the little happy face. And so yeah, there's all sorts of options with that. And then for our last thing, I didn't want to do anything about origami without doing an origami crane because those are, I think, kind of classic traditional shapes that people make with origami. A lot of people think first thing that comes to mind is those little paper cranes, and so in Japanese culture, it was thought that the crane's wings carry the soul up to paradise. So it's a very important figure in their culture. And if you have 1,000 cranes that you string together on a string, it's called a senbazuru, which if you go back to that slide about the book from the 1700s, that was one of the words on the title. It was talking about making a whole bunch of cranes. And there's also a belief that if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, then you get to have a wish come true. And so that's maybe a fun little project if you've got 1,000 pieces of paper and candy wrappers and letters and all sorts of stuff. You can fold all sorts of stuff. So here's my little video I made, and y'all have to excuse my chipped nail polish. I haven't been upkeeping it very much. So this is just some old scrapbook paper that a friend gave me. When you're an artist, people just give you art materials that they've never used, and it's really fun. But I cut off that little strip with the date because I didn't want that in my crane. And then I do my little triangle to make the square. And then I can just cut off that extra bit at the end there to make my square. And with these videos, if you ever get lost or stuck, feel free to pause it or go back. There's all sorts of things, and you can also look up instructions online. So right now, I am doing my diagonal folds, and I'm folding them both ways. So there's one where my pattern's on the outside, and there's one where my pattern's on the inside, just because I want those creases to be really strong and really flexible. I want them to bend both ways. And then I'm going to fold it lengthwise again into rectangles. And if you've got paper that's different on one side, you want your outside side to be on the outside when you fold it like this. So I want my pretty checkered pattern on the outside when I finish. So that's when I fold my rectangles, I'm folding so that those are on the outside. All right, and then for the base, you're going to take two corners that are opposite and you kind of push them in the middle, and then you fold the last part on top. And that can be a little bit tough to get used to, but this is a really common base in origami, and there's all sorts of other things you can make. All right, so you might have to watch that a few more times. And then you take the corners of your little square, and on one side, you only pick up one layer and you fold them into the middle. And it's sort of like when we were making our triangles earlier, or if you've ever folded a paper plane, it's sort of like that. You want to line the edge up with the middle of that little square. And then once you finish on both sides, you'll have like a kite shape. This shape's very symmetrical. So if you see me doing a fold on one side, I'm probably going to turn the paper over and do it again. So after you've got your kite, I'm folding this top over both sides, and I'm creasing it really good because this next part, you want that crease to be really strong. So you're going to open up those folds that you just did, and you're going to grab the top layer of the bottom of that side and fold it up, and it catches that creases that you just made, and it opens it up and folds it flat into like a diamond. And so you'll see me do that on the other end. But that's also one of those ones where it can get a little tricky. So you might have to watch this one again if you get stuck. But that top layer, and you fold it up, and you can see where one of it doesn't hit the crease right away. I've got to go in there and straighten it up, which that's also a great thing you can do while you're folding, is to neaten it and straighten it up as you're going. It's not, super time sensitive. You can go back in. So then you've got this diamond with these two little moving bits at the end. So you'll take one corner and fold it up so that the edge lines up with the middle of those little moving bits. I think they look like legs, so that's what I usually call them. And then you grab that on the other side. All right, and then you flip that over and you grab that outer corner, pull it into the middle, and then straighten. And so you're making those little leg pieces a little skinnier right now. And you grab those, and you can see those little leg pieces, they still wiggle. You're going to grab one, and you're going to fold it up at an angle, and that's going to be either the tail or the head, and you'll get to pick whichever one later. I usually get the sloppier looking one to make the head because I have to put an extra bend in it. So you bend it one way and then the other way, and this is one of those creases I do a lot of times on both sides because I really want it to stick. Then you open up the wings and you kind of push it up through it. And this can be a couple tries to get right. You might need to bend it back and recrease it. But you want to really make sure you are folding it back over that crease it had. And it's a little clearer to see on this side. This side was a little bit neater. So again, folding it up at an angle, really creasing it. Then you open that up on the inside and you push and see how that paper folds back over. It's almost like it's turning inside out. And then you want to straighten it up and then you pick one side. So that side's already a little bent. So I just go ahead and I bend it down to make a nice little head for my crane. And the last thing you do is you grab those two wings and you pull them apart so that your bird is nice and three-dimensional. And there you go. You've got a nice little paper crane. That's another one that I'd made. You can make them out of different types of paper, different sizes. And you can just have a lot of fun with those. And you can use them for toys or decoration or whatever you want.
Amethyst, you make it look so easy. Mine looks more like a paper airplane.
So that is a really cool thing you can make. And if you are
Yeah, mine looks more like a paper airplane here. Zoom, zoom.
Yours looks like what?
Like a paper airplane. But that's okay because I had a good time just folding and zooming out.
So I've been doing these. Yeah, and it's one of those things that like you definitely want to practice. Like I used to make a lot of paper cranes when I was younger, when I was a kid, and I would like even make them really small. I would like eat a Starburst and I'd like cut the wrapper small and then I would make a teeny weeny one. So once you get really good at them, you can make them all sorts of sizes. But maybe when you're starting out, I would recommend doing maybe a full-size piece of paper rather than like those little pieces like I kind of had. And if you had a good time and you like folding origami and you want to practice some more, there are so many different things out there that you can look up and find to make shapes out of. And so if you go online, there's all sorts of free patterns and videos and books, and they have all sorts of different styles of instructions. So maybe you do better with the patterns rather than the videos. Then you can look up the patterns. Where if you're a person that maybe needs the videos, you might be able to find a video. Try looking up patterns for your favorite animals or flowers. So what I just did was I Googled bear origami because bears are my favorite animals. And there was one right there, and I haven't made it yet, but I looked at the instructions and I was like, okay, I could probably practice that a couple of times and see if I could get a nice little bear shape. And same thing with this lily down here. Lilies are my favorite flowers. And so I just looked up on the internet how to make an origami lily. And that's just an example of a lily I could make.
That's cool, Miss Amethyst. Thank you so much for showing us so many fun ways to do origami. I wanted to share show our friends some wonderful examples of how they can use origami as well. I'm trying to find a link that I have to an origami that they are using with NASA. So once I get to that, I'll share my screen. And so origami, even though it's such an old art form, you can see here that NASA is using it to study star shades. So here's an example of a NASA template that you can go onto nasa.gov and look up star shades and make your own star shade. So star shades are something that NASA is using to block the light of stars so they can study planets. So of course, when you're bringing things into outer space, the best way to go about doing that is making them small and compact. And so using origami is a way to construct these really big, massive shades, but pare them down, fold them down, so that way when you get to outer space, they expand. So if you want to do this activity at home, you can certainly look up Star Shade by NASA, and there's a printable PDF, and it has a wonderful video that you can learn about star shades and instructions to follow along with. And it's just a really cool project. So I thought it was cool to highlight how origami, even though it's such an ancient practice, it's still being applied in STEM sciences today. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us for today's brain break. We're excited to come back next week, Wednesday at 1 p.m. We will have another new episode for you then. And I believe we will be focusing on using nature with your art so we can celebrate Earth Day with some art. So thank you again for tuning in, everybody. Check us out on Facebook or our website, homewoodsciencecenter.org, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.